I'm Maurice Jones, recording an oral history with Elizabeth Rahn. Is that correct? All right, could you please tell me your name and your birthday?
Yes, my name is Elizabeth Rahn. I was a Perry. I was born in Harnett County in March the 7th, 1925. And since that time I went to school there and worked for the government in the war years. My sweetheart came home from overseas. He was ex-POW. We got married, came here to live, and we've been living here ever since, in the same place that we lived then.
Okay. So, have you lived in any other places besides what you just told?
Well, I lived in Sanford, North Carolina, and went to school there, and I also lived in Washington, D.C., so during the war years. And then when I came here to live, no, we lived in, this is the same place that I've lived all the time that I was here. Yeah. We got married and moved into this house at the Blantyre area, and it didn't have air conditioning, and but anyway, we were okay. A large house, and we had a nice big barn in the back, and on it was Rivermont Farm. So my place is Rivermont Farm.
All right. Well, tell me a little bit about Blantyre and Rivermont Farm.
Well, Rivermont Farm, the place was built in the early 1930s by the Jones people. Miss Julie Jones she was a Woodfin, and she goes all the way back to the Civil War years. Her husband was a Civil War veteran, and she's the one who built the house and then added to it, and then my father-in-law bought the house and the place from her. So the Woodfin name, it goes way back. It was a very important name in the area. The Johnsons that live nearby, they're the same way. They're got good history. Their names go way back. And I think I've been extremely fortunate in being able to know all those people, because they were my neighbors, and they come to see me, and I went to see them. They'd feed me or whatever, and the children. I have 4 kids. And the churches there are old. They're older churches, that they attended, and we attended, although I attend Midward now. But it was a farm. Rivermont Farm was a farm, of course. And they had cattle, and it's a big barn. You can see the stalls in the barn and everything. It's still there. Cement, and it's cement and brick and glass. It even had glass windows in a barn. Can you imagine? Yeah. And it had hay in the upstairs, and my children enough to play in the hay, And there was the railroad track is down behind our house, just a little ways behind our house in the river. So we're lucky we had a railroad track and we had the river, you see. And when the train would come through the valley, you could hear it coming through all the way from Henderson County, way away to Henderson County, and we would run. When children come on, the trains are coming, and we would run to the garden area, and we would watch the train go by, and they'd wave at me, we'd pull like that, and they'd toot the horn at us, Oh, those kids were so excited. They did so much. I did too. I loved that. And of course, the train doesn't come by anymore. But the river's still there. I don't go much on the river. I'm not much of a water person. But they do have canoe rides that you can go up and down the river now. And then going way on back, Pennsylvania County, of course, was formed from Henderson County. And they, of course, was from Buncombe County. And so we know a lot of people in the area from Blantyre all the way down into Henderson County. And I noticed when I first came here into the area, in 1945 when I settled in here, nearly all the people that I knew in that area went to Hendersonville to shop. I never could understand why, but there were so many people who were born in Henderson County, you see, so they went to Hendersonville and just did their business here in Pennsylvania. It's been a long time since I came here, and I feel like I am a native, other than the fact that you never forget, where you went to school and that sort of thing. And we lived on a farm in Harnett County. We had cotton and tobacco, some money crops, and my father was a builder, so we got along pretty good until 1929. Then everything fell out of everything, but we were okay. We were all right. And 4 of my brothers were in World War II, and all of them came back safely. And my husband was in World War II, but he was taken prisoner in North Africa. So it's a part of all of the different things, you know, that have happened in the history of all the things that have happened during that period of time, that we're a part of it, you know, in our own way, in our homes, in our lives, and so on. And I did work in Washington, D.C. in the Pentagon building. So I worked for the War Department, so I figured I was part of it too, you know. So anyway, the people that are in the area, a lot of them are still there in the area of Blantyre. There's the Johnsons and the Woodfin descendants, and there's the Gashes. I mean, they go way back to the beginning. And the Baptist church down at Blantyre, that little church is still there. It's been there for years. And a number of people, a number of the Wales people that lived down in that area, and the Cochrans and those people that lived in the area, they were all in church there. They were all friends. They're, I can't remember the rest, I said Gash. And the Gash house is still there, you know, when they built it just after the Revolutionary Civil War. And when you go into these places, and I go past them and I see these things, and it takes me back to those days when these things were new. I wasn't here, but these things were new, but I can see it and compare it to all the different homes and the different barns and all those things that I saw when I was growing up. You know, the house that I was born in has been torn down, but it's still, there's a home right here, you know. And we had, as I was growing up, we had, of course, African American neighbors. There was one in particular that we just loved. Uncle Greenwald was his first name, and Aunt Annie, I think, was her name. We never went inside that house before they gave us something to eat. It's the kids, you know, when you run around, you know, and played together. And if it was nothing but a piece of cornbread, because they were older people, you know, and they lived there. But they were really, really our favorite neighbors. And all the neighbors around, of course, had farms. Everybody farmed. We were in a farming area. It's not too far from Fort Bragg. And many times we would watch the airplanes coming over too. And excuse me if I'm going back and forth from now to then, but this was my upbringing, and the school I went to is only 11 grades, and but we graduated and went away in our own things, you see, and then came here and made a good history here, you see, and I love history, and I'll make all the history I can. But it was the growing up days of the children. I have 4 children, 3 girls and a boy, and 3 of them graduated from college and they're doing quite well. The other one, she's been in and out of college. She's just kind of didn't get all the way through yet. And I have 5 grandchildren. They're most of them are sons. And I have 6, 7, I forget, great-grandsons. I had a great-grandson who graduated from high school out here just this year. So I think all in all, everything that I've done and how I've lived has made me to be a better person to my children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. It's a tremendous learning experience. I worked in Asheville at the Weather Records Center for almost 30 years. And that, too, was a records center. So that was a historical place because the records went all the way back, and then way back into the 1860s that we had stored there. And we worked with those records and so on. And that was an experience that I truly cared for, you know, because you made a lot of good friends and that sort of thing. And my husband, he had been injured in the war, and he had some real problems. And then he worked with his father in the wood business, you know, lumber business, and then he went to work at the Gerber Products plant, and he was working there for a number of years, and then later died. He died in 1998. So there I was all alone, as a widow, all alone. But it's been an experience for me that the man upstairs has been there with me all the time. And there's one other thing that I wondered and wondered about. As I said, I grew up with African American neighbors. We were there all around. And I played in the sand, you know, with the little kids, you know. And I was always so mad because my hair wasn't curly. See, it was straight, you know, straight. But anyway, when I came up here, I wondered about why there was not as many here in this county as there was down there. Well, then it came to me, it's a small county, and it's not a farm county, like it was down there, And I don't know of any African American people who live in the Blantyre community. If they do, I don't know them. I'd like to, because I've never seen any of them that I didn't like. And that doesn't bother me, But anyway, it's been a good experience for me, especially since I got into the Historical Society, and we studied all of the history of Transylvania County, all of the history of Henderson County, and here I am right there in between, almost in between both of them. I live about a mile from the Henderson County line. So I guess you could say I'm into both of them. But anyway, I got some good friends over there. I belong to the Historical Society over there. And they have a lot of history, family histories and so on, and stored there in the files and so on. And I like Hendersonville, but it's getting too crowded now. It's growing, it's getting too crowded. I like Brevard. I live 8 miles out. I come to church in Brevard. I got a lot of friends here, and many of them that I work with are in the Historical Society, and we love the history. And I love to read. And I don't know if it's anything else. I guess I've left out a lot of stuff that probably you need to know. Ask some questions.
Well, one of the things that you'd mentioned, you talked about there was tobacco and cotton on the farm when you were growing up. Did you tend to any of that, or who worked the farm?
Well, my father, of course, we owned the farm where we lived at, and the cotton and the tobacco were money crops. We had corn, of course, but the corn was for the animals, and then we had corn, in the garden. And a garden's almost an acre of garden, area. And we had, of course, there was a barn for the animals. And let me tell you about one thing. I want to tell this. It's a funny little story. My mother had about almost a bucket full of peas like that. She said, "I want you all to plant that." Now, William, my brother, he's older. He said, "You go along there and you put them down, and then I'll come along and put them down, just like he did, because I was younger." Well, we planted about 4 or 5 rows, and we still had some peas in that bucket. He got tired of planting peas, so he dug a hole at the end of the row, and he dumped those peas in it and covered them up. "Mama, we're done. We're done." Well, we weren't, because those peas came up, all of them that he dumped in the hole. And my mother looked at that and she wondered why. I mean, she was kind of feisty at times, You don't waste stuff like that, not then. And then, of course, we had the confession that he dumped the peas in there. And my other brother, he decided he would be so helpful, So he went and got a big old long switch like this. It had it poked out like this. "You're going to get a whooping. You're going to get a whooping." Well, he did. She didn't wear it. But anyway, we didn't plant peas anymore without somebody watching. So there was a lot of different things that we did. Oh yes, and I had another brother that he loved to show off. He loved to show people what he could do. Well, we had a mule there that we used for plowing. And he would go, I don't know how in the world he managed this, but he would take a hold of that mule's hind tail, and he put his feet up on the mule's, the knees things, in the back feet, legs are like this, and he'd put his feet up on that and hold that mule's tail, and then make the mule run. And there was my brother sitting on, I wish you could have seen that, sitting on the back of that thing. He's going up there just like that. You're supposed to ride a horse on the top. You're not supposed to go to the back. But anyway, there was a lot of different things that went on like that. On the farm, I'm going to tell this because everybody involved in this is not here anymore. My father was a cusser. When he got angry, he really let it rip. All of us learned it, but if we said it, our mother paddled us hard, so we didn't say it. But I remember one day he got so angry, there was something going on in the field, and the plow was broke or something. But he got mad at the mule because the mule wasn't going in making a straight road. So he went up there and he grabbed that mule's ears and he cussed that mule out up one side and down the other. And we were way out here like this, We didn't dare go around. But anyway, I guess the load of the years, the 1930s years and so on, it just got to him, I guess, every now and then. He just had to let it out. So he cussed the mule out. But the mule couldn't reply. So other things that happened, I don't remember. We had childhood games. We'd have what we played marbles, what we called them, put a circle in the sand. See, it was sandy down there. And you put marbles in a circle, and then you get a shooter. And then each one of us had a shooter, and like that. And that one brother that got planted the peas, he got a steel shooter. He wasn't supposed to have it. That broke the marbles. Well, I'm not sure if he got paddled, but they made him quit. And he was a character. I have 2 brothers left. There was 9 in the family. So we had 2 older ones were girls. And they helped my mother in the kitchen. They learned to cook good biscuits. They learned to cook good cakes and everything. Well, and then there were 4 boys, and then there was me. And there was 2 more boys. And then I, of course, became a tomboy. And I was too little to do anything in the kitchen. And by that time, my mother didn't really need that much extra help in the kitchen, so I didn't get to learn all the different things they did. Consequently, I'm not a good cooker. I don't like housework. I do it because I know I like to have a clean house and that sort of thing, But we had climbed trees and little saplings, and we'd climb a sapling like this and bend it over like this, and hang on to it here and then turn it loose, and it went back and forth like that. Our mother didn't know that. She'd have put a stop to that quick. She didn't know that. But all in all, we didn't get in real bad. My brother broke his arm, and my sister broke her arm, but it was something kind of work that they were doing. It wasn't something they shouldn't be doing. Yeah.
Well, you'd mentioned that your brothers were in the war, and your husband,
Yes.
your husband was in the war.
World War II.
Can you tell me what it was like for you, where you were during World War II, with most of your family and loved ones gone?
Well, as I said before, I was not at home during that period of time, so I didn't see my mother's and father's faces when you talked about the boys. But he listened to the news. I mean, the news was on. He run that. Nobody could listen to anything but the news on the radio, and he got the newspaper first. I mean, with 4 boys in the war, naturally, he wants to keep up with all that. And we were extremely lucky. They came back. All of them came back okay. One brother was a glider pilot, and it crashed, and he hurt his nose, so he got the Purple Heart. But outside of that, one of them broke down with TB. But outside of that, they weren't injured at all. My husband was shot in the leg, and that's when he was taken prisoner, in Africa, and spent some time in Germany. And about 2 years, starving half to death, But he made some good friends there in the army and in the camp. And he was affected by it. I was too young to know exactly what to expect, but he was affected by it. He didn't like to be hemmed up in a corner, and he didn't like to talk about the war. He wouldn't talk about it at all, hardly. Once in a great while, he would talk about the landing, where they went and how. Then he was in the infantry, so he walked a lot. And when he came back home, he didn't want to go to college because he didn't want to be hemmed in school like that, So it did affect him. It did, but he grew out of it. And he was okay. But anyhow, it's been a great experience. And my husband's people from Savannah, Georgia area, and Georgia crackers, and they were from over near Savannah. And a wonderful accent. Oh, that wonderful accent they had. I just love to go down there. And but they came here. He had TB, so he came here in 1933. So they stayed. But Mr. and Ms. Rahn both went back to Georgia. They lived and died down there, because Georgia was always home. But they were from the same kind of life living that we had, because they had farms. They had all the different things that they had, and they chopped down trees. They had turpentine mills. This was down in Georgia. They had a few of that sort of thing in the area where I grew up, but it was not real close. I grew up in the sand hills, and it was mostly just farming,
You had mentioned earlier that you lived in D.C., and I heard you say something that struck familiar with me. Mm-hmm. My mother was a civilian working for the Marines at the Pentagon.
Oh, okay.
So I was just wondering, what was your job when you were living in D.C.?
Well, I was in I was in, we did typing and filing. I don't remember what we called. We used to work for the War Depot. We worked in the Pentagon building. It wasn't quite finished, and we lived on in some former Navy barracks, and then a couple of friends and I, they moved into town because we wanted to be there, so we'd go to the movies at night. But I went to business school in Sanford, and then one of the girls and I decided we wanted to do something else, so we signed up for social. Anyway, we signed up to do war work, government work. We didn't know whether we'd go. I mean, we signed up, we passed it. We went to school in Greensboro to prepare ourselves for government work, and she probably did the same thing. And then our assignment then was to go to Washington, D.C., and we'd be assigned to the Pentagon building. So I did office work, and let me tell you something that's funny. I thought it was kind of funny. During the war years, different things were scarce. Nylon stockings and rubber band, all the kinds of things you made with that. And I'm going to tell this anyway. You don't have to laugh. You don't have to laugh. You don't have to blush. But ladies have elastic in the waistline of their underpants. Well, they didn't have they didn't have that stuff, and you couldn't buy them during the war. You had a tie, and it tied like that, just like the top of a sack, and you tied like that. Well, one morning when I went on the bus, went through the turnstile that you could go through, you go into the open space there in the building, and wouldn't you know, my britches started coming off. You got all the way down to here. Well, I made it to the bathroom all right. And I don't tell that very much. But anyway, it's part of the wartime era and the things that we'd had to do without. And gasoline. See, I was not at home during that period of time, so I don't remember all the different things that they had to do without, but gasoline was one of them. They had to eat card for gasoline, butter, all different things. It was, I don't know, just a lot of things that you had to get cards for to buy. But we got to see Washington, D.C. We got to see the White House. We didn't get to go in the White House, but we saw it. We saw President Roosevelt a time or two coming in on a car. He was brought in, and we saw, of course, the Pentagon building, and we went to the Senate. We went down there and looked around in different places, and we went up to Washington Monument. You know how tall that thing is, and they wouldn't let you walk up. My brother was visiting there, me and him went over there. They wouldn't let you walk up. You had to go up on an elevator. And we wondered why they wouldn't let us walk. Well, they said somebody might go in there and put a bomb somewhere up along the way. So we didn't have a time to plant any bombs. But that was one of the things that I particularly remember about it. I wouldn't go up in that thing now because I'm afraid of heights. But it was a really good experience for me, meeting new people and seeing all these different people. That we had some African Americans in there. They were real good, fine people. There was two of them there that one of them I particularly liked, Geraldine. And I wonder if she's still living. And I remember when she got married, and she was from Ohio. But she was one of my best friends. And we just had a lot of fun, One evening I went to there was a show down in some little theater that she was in. She was in a play. So I went down to see it, She was dancing. Oh, she did great. So I've had a lot of good experiences like this with other people, meeting all the people I wouldn't have met if I hadn't gone to Washington. On the other hand, if I had stayed in North Carolina, then I would have kept up with all the different things that was going on, in North Carolina. But it's 6 one, half a dozen the other,
Well, you've been here for quite a while. Do you have any experiences with any of the major industries that were here, whether it be Olin, DuPont, or Coats America?
I did not. I would have gone to work at Olin, except that, Acoustic they called it, except that I had children and I couldn't find someone that I could trust to leave them with to work shifts, because that'd be the best paying job that I would get. And since I had worked for the government before, I tried that. And by the time DuPont was opening up and so on, I think I had already started working over there in Asheville. I started working over there in, I think it was 1956. Something like that, and stayed on for almost 30 years, and of course retired, And so there's a lot of things that happened in Transylvania County I didn't keep up with as much as I would have probably. I didn't. That's the only place I worked outside the home, and the church, of course, and volunteer different things. But and you know, you see the weather, and you look around and you see, well, the weather's going like this, and so on. But over there, you learned exactly what the weather was. We did digitized. You did a whole bunch of that stuff. You know, you had to learn how to read that, had to learn how to read the chart. And it made you realize there's more to it than just looking out there and say it's going to rain, you know, cloud types and all that sort of thing. That was a good experience for me. And I met a lot of good people. Now, I worked in the Grove Arcade building, and now, of course, you know, they moved out into a new building. That was after I left. But, and we drove into town, and we drove into Asheville, and we've been all, but I won't drive in Asheville now because it's so crowded. Oh, I wouldn't dare. So that's about it. I thoroughly, I'm really truly glad and happy that I was able to meet all the different people that I've met over the years. And in Transylvania County, the same way. It's my home now. I'm a widow. I live alone, and I do as much of my outside work and everything that I can, you know. And still in the same place. And did I tell you what the name of the place was? Rivermont was what they called it, yeah. And the reason they named it Rivermont was because the lady was going someplace, and she says, now, I want you to be sure to paint this just exactly like I'm telling you. And it's River Mount. River on this side, mountains on that side. Well, when she got back home, that sign went up, and it was Rivermont. He forgot to put the U in it. You know, he couldn't read, or he might have been a little tipsy, you know. But anyway, I like Rivermont better. So Rivermont Farm is still there with a few things on it. I had some trees planted on it, and but it's not exactly the way it was before. But the barn is there. You can go in and look around.
Well, before I let you go, I've heard that you attended the senior games. Can you tell me a
Oh,
little
I
bit about
did.
that?
Oh, I did. And you know what? I dearly regret the fact I didn't know about all that stuff sooner. But somebody told me about it. Actually, it was my Naughty Tinsley told me. So she got us together, and we went down there and we clog danced. And I began to realize then, this is senior games, and it's been going on for all this time, and I didn't know the extent of what they were doing. I thought it was just outside activities. But it isn't. It's a lot of real good things that they do on the inside. And you can, I mean, you don't have to win every time to go, you know, but because it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun meeting all the different people that we met down there, you know. They have a new director now. She's a lady, and she's still pushing on and doing just like Pango did. But I do like that, and I like to walk. They have what's called a fun walk, and they let me win the last time we did that. This is fun. You don't go to Raleigh for that. And I think I'm doing the right thing to keep me going because I am past 90. And I don't do a lot of things that some other people do, but it's not because I'm that, you know, I just don't do that. I don't drink, and I run and I walk, jog, you know, and I walk, and push the lawnmower and ride the lawnmower, that sort of thing. And I try to keep a good attitude about, you don't think about how old you are. I mean, you start dwelling on how old you are, it's going to worry you to death. Well, that's pushed back. You know, I'm here as long as I'm going to be here, and I'm going to enjoy living as long as I can, and do the right things, meet the right people like you guys, and all the people that I work with here, and hopefully then go out with a smile.
What was it? You said that the Depression hit hard.
The Depression was one of the hardest things that the people here that I can remember that lived in. Yeah, I remember I was quite young. I was born in 1925, and this happened in 1929. I was quite young, but I remember my father had a car. And if you had a car, you know, you're doing pretty well. And he was from Robeson County, and this was in Harney County. And he would get in that car, and he would take us down to see the relatives. And we'd go up there, and we'd go to this some other place. We'd go see all the people and so on. And then whammo, after 1929, he had to park the car. And he couldn't get, you know, I mean, he couldn't, nothing. I mean, it was just pitiful. But everybody suffered. Everybody suffered. And during the period of time that I particularly remember, they would have flour, or bags of food and that sort of thing at a certain place, and then the head of the family went and either get parts, and bring it home. And I remember my father hitched up the mule to the wagon, and he went over there to the place where he got it. And then I remember him coming back with food, you see, things that we couldn't raise ourselves. We don't raise flour, And if it hadn't been for the fact that we were on the farm and we had a big garden, I'm not sure, I don't know how we'd have done it. Because some of the people that I went to school with, they had to quit because they didn't have enough money to buy clothes with. And we fixed a lunch sometimes, that we'd take it in, and sometimes we didn't. But we'd eat a big breakfast and we'd eat a big supper, you see. So we got along okay. But I wasn't the only one. We weren't the only ones. Everybody all over the community, all over the state. And there's people from town that we knew, friends and relatives that we knew from Sanford and other places would come to see us. And they always left, with farm products, corn and different things like that, peas and different things that we grew. And if we hadn't had that, I don't know what would have happened with a big family like we had. And they saved the flour sacks. They'd use them for all different kinds of things. As a matter of fact, there was some, I don't know if it was a flour sack or what it was that my mother saved, and got all the dye out of it, all the dye and everything out of it. And she made me the prettiest little skirt in top. And it was gold color. She dyed it gold color. And I'm thinking, who would have done something like that? Who would have done something like that? Except the people that they had to do the. But anyway, it was a hard time because cotton prices went down, tobacco prices went down, and you literally lived on what you grew.
Were people good to each other, mean to each other?
They were good to each other in that they swapped. They would gather the tobacco and put it in the barn, and pick the cotton, and they swapped, helping each other. And we had some African American people that lived not too far from us, and I remember, seemed like I remember during those period of times that they paid them 10 cents a pound, and they'd have a great big sack, tied around here, and then you drag the sack, and they'd pick at least 200 pounds in one day, and I was elbow to elbow with them, and I didn't even pick 25 pounds in my little sack, But I do remember those times because it was not only hard on us with the farm, but it was hard on anybody trying to get work. But and Daddy used them. He used as many people as he could, and he did as much swapping as he could. Things began to let up then along about the war years, and then they could buy our shoes, without having to make us, fix the shoes bottom and everything. They resold the shoes and mend the dresses, and they'd hand the shoes down to the next person, and clothes, coats, and I wore my brother's overalls. They'd cut them off, and I'd wear the overalls, and not to school, but to, around home. And we went to school. Was not all day like it is now. They let us out at about 2, so we could work on the farm. You see, the rest of the day.
Did you have electricity?
We didn't have electricity in our house until by 1940, I think it was 1940, 41. It was out, they'd bring it out into certain areas and out from wherever the Carolina Power and Light, I guess. And then our area was not one of the first ones to get power. And we had it hanging down from the ceiling, Because we had kerosene lamps, that we had to carry around, and you have to keep them clean, and you have to wash, the globe around it, and it was pretty rough. I mean, we learned how to read at the kitchen table with a kerosene lamp, and we usually had at least 2, and we had to be real careful because it was all glass. And you put that kerosene in it, and we did a lot of reading before dark, And we had wood stove, and one of my jobs was to help bring stove wood in. Yeah. Charlie, cut me some firewood. Got to have some stove wood. Okay, come on, kids. Come on, young'uns, he called us. So he chopped it and we carried it in. So that was his doing, He preferred to chop it. But anyway, we got along all right. Because we had cow for milk and butter, and we had the horse, the mule. Actually, he had 2. And the boys, he and the boys and everything, if they did all the farm work, we had hogs and did all the farm work and swap the neighbors when we could, when we needed to, and walk to church. Just about all during the 30s. Very few people had a car that they kept. And yeah, it was rough. You think about it now, you think about it was rough, but I think in the long run, it molded us into being possibly, better people. Work for yourself, you do it and you get it done. And only one of my brothers graduated from college. Two younger ones went to college. They went to, one was in the service, the other, but they went to school. But some of them didn't even finish high school. They had to get out and work because it's in the 30s. That was tough times. And all these depression years that we've had since then, that couldn't touch it it couldn't touch it at all, because there were so many people, city people, that didn't have what we had, and we were lucky, and we thought we were really hard up. But when you think about it, we did survive, and I think we're better people for it. And because we had some relatives lived in town, and they come out to see us, and they went home with bags of corn, bags of peas, or whatever it was we had, picked fresh. And of course, my mother did a lot of canning. There's no freezing or anything. She did a lot of canning. I did learn how to do that. Oh yeah, I'll shell the mini peas and butter beans and stuff. But it makes you appreciate the kind of things that you have, and it makes you learn to like anything that is edible. You eat it. Even if you don't like it, you eat it, and you learn to like the kinds of things that we grow, and it was good for you. And and I churn. I was fighting about to churn. I learned how to churn butter. Put that milk in there, and it covers up. It has a top to it, and has a dasher thing in it, up there just like that. I'd get so tired, but that milk and the butter was so good, But it was worth it. My father died at age 55. He had heart problems. And my mother lived till she was 91. So I'm gonna pass that. Yeah. She's a hard worker.
Did you know your grandparents?
Pardon?
Did you know your grandparents?
My father's mother, because he was the youngest in the family, and they lived together, of course, for a long time, and she made her home with us. And she was illiterate. She had red hair, but I didn't see her with red hair. I was young, and she was gray-headed, and she was kind of bossy. She stuttered. Her father was a stutterer. Her mother was a stutterer. And her mother had red hair. She came from Scotland somewhere. But when I knew my grandmother, her hair was gray, and she had lost some of her teeth, but she was a hard worker. She could plow. She even plowed, because she had 2 children, and then she divorced, and then in order to put food on the table and so on, she worked for other people, and she even plowed. She had some land rented that she plowed. And she was some person, and she really was hard worker. But she didn't live with us all the time until her later years that she got sick and was at our home when she died. She talked about the first time she went on a train, first time she'd ever seen a train, and the times that she went on a train, first time she'd ever seen a movie. She had a son that lived in Florida, and she would go on a train back and forth to Florida to see him. It always made me just wish and wish that I could go with her. But then she died in 1941, I believe it was, and she was with us when she died. But she's married twice. She got married again. She's about 65, and he predeceased her. But everywhere she went, though, she worked. She delivered babies. She was a midwife, illiterate. But she can do so many things, that so many people can't, even that are literate people. And I always wanted red hair. Made me so mad because mine was white, sunburned. I'm a blonde-head. But I took after my mother. And my grandmother had red hair, her mother had red hair, and one of my sisters had auburn-colored hair, and my youngest brother had reddish auburn. I still don't like to look at them. I still like to have red hair. However, I never bothered to dye it or anything like that. I just let it go. And what else? What did I miss?
I can't think of anything you missed. I'm
Well, I
sure
love-
you missed about 5 days worth of stories, but
Okay. I love music. As like I said, I love reading. I love music. And I learned to dance when I was clog dance when I was mid-40s. And I've had ballroom dancing lessons. And I've been doing some of that. And every time some real good music comes on the radio or TV, I start dancing all alone, you know. And I did some clog dancing at the senior games and won one year, last year, I believe it was last year. But those people down in Raleigh, those judges down there, they just couldn't see what it was that I was trying to say. I was saying everything to the seniors, not to the judges. But you have to dance for the judges. So I did a clog dance too. But so it's a good thing. It's a wonderful thing that I wish more people would get involved with the senior games because there's so many different things you can do, and they, you know, all the crafts and all different things like that, you know. But I didn't compete this past year. Let's see, this April. Yeah, that was when I went down there and I didn't win. And I don't know if I'll compete this year if I can find something, but. And square dancing, any kind of dancing I can do, I like that because I love music, good music. So proud of the music center and the Philharmonic, you know, down at the college. Try to keep up with all the news, try to keep an open mind to everything, and cry when somebody dies. I hear about it on the radio and TV or something, you know, but such bad things going on. But I feel like that I'm not 90. When you think about, well, they're 90 years old, they're old, and I mean, I'm lucky. I am so lucky that when you see people like that, and what I'm going to do is shoot for another 10 years, and then I'm going to have a 100th birthday on the square, and everybody's invited. Everybody just close out the traffic, and everybody that's 100 years old, of course, they'll be there. I think that'd be a great way to celebrate.
I think it would too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time.
Well, I appreciate it. I didn't know I was going to get into all this. I thought I was going to have to tell all the history of Transylvania County. We know that already, don't we?
There's quite a bit.
There's quite a
We
bit.
didn't get into, Transylvania County was formed right around the time of the Civil War.
Yeah,
And Transylvania County is actually a separation of Jackson and Henderson counties.
yeah.
Yeah.
Henderson,
There's
yeah.
a lot.
Yeah, and it's and that was, and even that's a terrible thing. Well, I didn't mention the Devers. That was long about the time that Mr. Dever was killed. In '65, and he had two sons that was in the army, and of course the story there is, Mr. Dever was killed on the porch at his house, and the story there is that somebody came looking for his son, and it was the son that they were looking for because he had quite possibly rounded up some deserters, and they were hanged. And it could be, I can't think of any reason why anybody else would want to kill somebody, unless it was something like that. We don't know for sure. They don't know. If the family knows, the family story is that somebody came, hollered for him. He came to the porch, and they shot him. And it was the wrong one. They said it was after his son. But anyway, makes for good stories. But Transylvania County has a really, really good history, it does. It came out of Henderson, Buncombe, Jackson, and so on.